A cancer diagnosis is already a nightmare, but what if your doctor's treatment was the real poison? Dr. Farid Fata, a Michigan oncologist, was convicted of scamming hundreds of patients with unnecessary and lethal treatments. He deceived and poisoned vulnerable individuals, putting their lives at risk for financial gain. The extent of his greed and manipulation was staggering. As we explore this horrific case, you'll discover a trail of deceit and exploitation that will leave you questioning the very foundations of the medical profession. You will learn how a doctor's greed can undermine the very oath they swore to uphold. Dr. Farid Fata was born in 1965 in Lebanon into a religious family. He always dreamed of becoming a doctor and eventually moved to the US to pursue his career. Nobody knew that behind his charming smile and successful medical practice, his dark side was emerging. Fata completed his medical studies and residency in New York before moving to Michigan to start his own practice. He quickly gained a reputation as a top cancer specialist with a thriving medical empire and charitable foundation. But beneath the surface, Fata's obsession with wealth and power was driving him to make devastating decisions. As his practice grew, so did his ego. He became known for his aggressive treatment approaches, but patients had no idea that their trusted doctor was prioritizing profits over their health. Fata's empire expanded to 7 locations, with his wife by his side as CEO and CFO. Fata's patients adored him, unaware of the greed driving his actions. He spoke at charity events and built a reputation as a leading cancer specialist. But behind closed doors, Fata was orchestrating a massive fraud scheme, putting thousands of lives at risk. One of those lives was Maggie Dorsey. Maggie was a mother of 9. She was once able to lead an active life, attending her children's sports events, performing everyday tasks like helping her young daughter with her hair. In 2004, Dr. Farid Fata diagnosed her with multiple myeloma. This false diagnosis destroyed her life. She underwent 7 months of intense chemotherapy, but her condition only worsened. Chemotherapy is a toxic and immunosuppressive treatment that can cause a wide range of debilitating side effects. These include nausea, anemia, hair loss, fatigue, organ damage, and increased risk of infections, and much more. The grueling drug treatments inflicted by Dr. Fata left Maggie with debilitating chronic pain, weakness, and tremors, rendering her unable to even stand on her feet. Desperate for answers, Maggie sought a second opinion, and then a third. It was only then that she received the shocking truth. She never had cancer. The new physicians ordered tests, which revealed that Maggie's original diagnosis was incorrect. They told her, "Maggie, you do not have cancer. You never had cancer." Maggie was relieved but also outraged. How could Fata have misdiagnosed her and subjected her to such harsh treatments? In 2007, Maggie sued Fata for medical malpractice, but the case was settled out of court in 2009. Fata admitted no wrongdoing and even sent Maggie a medical bill after the settlement. Fata not only ruined a woman's life with unnecessary treatments, but then had the audacity to send her a medical bill afterwards. Maggie's case was only the beginning. In 2010, oncology nurse Angela Swantek witnessed alarming practices during a job interview at Fata's clinic. She saw patients receiving excessive chemotherapy and questionable drug combinations. Angela declined the position and filed a complaint with state authorities. Angela waited for a response, but none came until May 2011. This is when she received a form letter from the state of Michigan's Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. The letter, signed by Acting Director Ray Ramsdell of the Bureau of Health Professions, stated that there was no evidence to support an investigation into Fata. The letter was a disappointing blow to Angela's efforts to expose Fata's wrongdoing. Despite the lack of support from authorities, Angela continued to speak out against Fata's practices, hoping to spread the word and bring him to justice. Her efforts eventually contributed to Fata's downfall in 2013. In 2012, Monica, 53, went for a routine checkup. Her doctor found something weird in her blood work and sent her to a cancer specialist. Unfortunately, that cancer specialist was Dr. Farid Fata. Fata said she had multiple myeloma and needed chemo for the rest of her life. Monica was shocked, but trusted her doctor's referral and Fata's reputation. Monica started treatment, but she had doubts. On July 1st, 2013, after her first chemo session, she fell and broke her leg. At the hospital, she met Dr. Monglay, who was filling in for Fata. Monglay seemed concerned and asked lots of questions. Monica suspected something was off. 2 days later, Monglay told Monica she didn't have cancer and warned her to stay away from Fata. This was a big breakthrough in exposing Fata's fake practices. Finally, a doctor who puts patients first. Dr. Monglay's warning to Monica was a rare display of integrity in a case marked by greed and deception. Dr. Monglay's suspicions of foul play led him to investigate Dr. Fata. He reviewed Monica's chart and found no evidence of cancer. Further investigation revealed numerous unnecessary treatments and fake diagnoses. Fata was using expensive drugs and billing insurance companies for millions. Dr. Monglay informed a nurse and nurse practitioner who confronted Fata, revealing his guilt. Office manager George Karadsha was alerted and started his own investigation, discovering a suspicious consultation-to-treatment ratio and finding that 95% of patients given IVIG didn't need it. Karadsha reported Fata to the U.S. Department of Justice, leading to Fata's arrest on 19 counts of healthcare fraud. Initially, Fata's bond was $170,000 but was raised to $9 million due to flight risk. Investigators found 553 victims, including those falsely diagnosed with cancer. Fata billed insurance companies for millions and received kickbacks from hospices. He faced 23 charges, including healthcare fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Fata could have faced 175 years in prison and deportation before taking a plea deal. Fata was sentenced to 45 years in prison for his role in a devastating healthcare fraud scheme that involved administering unnecessary treatments to 553 patients and submitting approximately $34 million in fraudulent claims. However, the victims and their families felt that the sentence was too lenient, with one victim calling it a slap in the face. The scheme, which involved falsifying cancer diagnoses and administering excessive chemotherapy, caused immense physical and emotional harm to hundreds of patients. Despite Fata's conviction, the victims waited nearly 5 years for compensation from a $12 million fund set up to cover their expenses. The fund received applications from 700 victims and relatives, but some were rejected, leaving many without the financial support they desperately needed. Adding insult to injury, Fata's wife even filed a claim to access the funds for their children's education and support, sparking further outrage among the victims. The government assured that the delay was part of the procedure to establish the payment process. But victims like Geraldine Smith Parkin, whose husband received excessive chemotherapy, were left waiting for justice. Recently, Fata has been asking for mercy, seeking an early release from his 45-year prison sentence. But his victims and their families are outraged, saying he showed no mercy to them. Fata is seeking compassionate release from prison for the third time, claiming he has a rare blood disorder and will die if he doesn't receive proper medical attention outside of prison. Fata, who has been incarcerated for 11 years, maintains he has shown genuine remorse for his crimes and has turned his life around in prison. He argues that the prison system has failed to provide him with necessary medication, including Neupogen, and that his condition has deteriorated significantly. A prison medical consultant agrees that Fata's lack of proper care constitutes deliberate indifference and recommends his release or transfer to home confinement. The U.S. Attorney's Office plans to object to Fata's request, and victims and families are being asked to submit letters to the court before August 26th to weigh in on the matter. It's astonishing that Farid Fata is seeking compassionate release after causing so much harm and suffering to his patients. His claims of remorse and transformation in prison seem hollow, given the severity of his crimes. The focus should be on providing justice and closure to the victims and their families, rather than granting leniency to a convicted felon who has shown no regard for human life.